He fired every nanny for the smallest mistake, until the one woman he nearly dismissed did the impossible. His paralyzed son walked to her. But what she did next left even the billionaire speechless. You will not believe how this story ends. Before we begin this story, make sure to subscribe and tap the bell icon so you never miss our powerful, life-changing content. Like and share the channel to help us reach more hearts. These stories are more than just entertainment. Each one carries a meaningful lesson designed to inspire, uplift, and empower. Billionaire fired every nanny for less, until his paralyzed son took first steps to the black maid. I am not proud of who I used to be. I had everything, the fortune, the fame, the boardroom power. But I had lost the one thing that mattered most. My ability to feel. Not long after my wife passed, I buried myself in business. I was ruthless, cold, efficient. And my son, Jeremiah, he became a casualty of that war. He was only 5 when the accident happened. A car crash, a crushed spine. Doctors told me he would never walk again. I heard them, but I did not listen. Instead, I blamed everyone else. The driver, the hospital, even the nannies. I fired them one after another. Some for being late. Some for sighing too loudly. Some for showing too much pity. I told myself I was protecting Jeremiah. But truthfully, I was protecting myself from seeing what I had become. Then she came. Her name was Amara. A soft-spoken woman in her mid-30s. Black, tall, calm eyes that seemed to see right through me. She did not come with credentials. No fancy degree. No glowing references. Just a quiet presence and a steady voice. I almost turned her away. But Jeremiah, for the first time in weeks, he smiled. So I let her stay. But I warned her. One mistake, and she would be gone. Amara nodded. She did not argue. She did not flatter. She just began. At first, I watched her like a hawk. Every hour, every move. She never raised her voice. She never lost her patience. She sang when she cleaned. She hummed when she fed him. And most nights, she cried silently in the kitchen when she thought no one was watching. I was watching. I started coming home earlier, pretending I forgot my laptop. Truth was, I was drawn to the sound of her voice. It was the only thing in that house that felt alive. Then one morning, it happened. I had just returned from a tense meeting. Fired 3 executives. Lost a $30 million deal. I was furious. Exhausted. I opened the door. And froze. Jeremiah was standing. Wobbling. Clutching the armrest. Tears in his eyes. And Amara, kneeling in front of him. Arms open. Tears streaming down her cheeks. "Come, baby," she whispered. "You can do it. Mama's got you." He took one step, then another, then fell into her arms. I dropped my briefcase. I could not breathe. My legs gave way. I knelt, and I wept. For the first time in years, I felt everything. Grief, guilt, gratitude. I had built skyscrapers, but I had never built what she did. A bridge back to my son. That night, I sat beside Amara in the kitchen. I wanted to thank her, but words felt too small. She spoke first. Jeremiah did not need a nurse, she said. He needed someone who believed in his fire. Then she looked at me. And so did you. No one had ever said that to me. Not since my wife. And in that moment, I realized I had not just lost her. I had lost me. But somehow, this woman, this stranger, she had found me in the ruins. I asked her to stay.
not as help,
but as part of our family.
she smiled. But she did not answer.
Instead, she stood up, kissed Jeremiah goodnight, and whispered something in his ear. The next morning, everything changed. A letter sat on the kitchen table. Her apron folded beside it.
She was gone. No explanation. No goodbye.
Just a note. And a question that would haunt me. Do you know who you are, when no one is watching? I sat there for hours, reading the letter again
and again,
until Jeremiah rolled beside me and said, "Dad, can we go find her?"
I looked at Jeremiah.
His voice was stronger now,
clearer, braver.
Something inside me cracked wide open. He was not just walking.
He was leading.
And I, for the first time, was willing to follow. I nodded slowly,
stood up, and said, "Yes, son.
We will find her."
We searched everywhere.
The agency had no record of her placement. The number she left was disconnected. Even the neighbors could not recall when she had come or gone. It was as if Amara was never meant to stay, only to pass through. But I could not let her become just another ghost in my life. Not after what she gave us. So I changed everything. I stepped back from the company, sold my controlling shares, took Jeremiah out of therapy clinics filled with machines, and into places filled with soul. We started volunteering at shelters, cooking with single mothers, playing with abandoned children, because that was what Amara had taught us. That healing comes not through power,
but through presence.
One evening, in a small town outside Atlanta, we found a children's center with her name on the wall. The Amara Foundation, for the unseen and unheard.
My heart stopped.
I asked to speak with the founder. The woman at the desk smiled. She comes in every Sunday, she said, teaches the kids to sing, cook, and speak their truth. I felt a lump rise in my throat.
Sunday came.
I dressed Jeremiah in his favorite sweater, the one she gave him, bright yellow, with a sun stitched near the heart. We arrived early. The building was warm and filled with laughter. Children ran through the halls. Paintings covered the walls.
Hope lived here. And then I heard her voice, soft, melodic.
Just as I remembered. Jeremiah ran toward it, through a doorway, into a sunlit room, where a group of children sat in a circle, singing softly.
At the center, Amara,
hair tied back, hands gently guiding a young girl's rhythm, eyes still holding galaxies of grace.
She turned, saw Jeremiah, and froze. He ran to her, did not speak, just hugged her, tight. She dropped to her knees,
held him like a mother would, as if time had never passed. I stood behind them,
silent, ashamed, grateful.
When she looked up at me, she did not look surprised, just sad and strong. "Why did you leave?" I finally asked. She stood, touched my shoulder gently. "Because your son needed a father, not a replacement." I could not speak. My throat burned. "And you?" I whispered. "Did you not need us too?" She smiled softly. I needed to be whole before I could stay. I wanted to fall at her feet, to beg, to explain. But she raised her hand. "Not here. Not like this. Sit. Let us talk, like people who have changed." So we sat, and for the first time, I told my story not as a billionaire, but as a man. A broken man who finally learned how to feel. And she listened, not with judgment, but with the quiet grace of someone who had once been shattered, and chose to love anyway. Then Jeremiah pulled something from his pocket.
A wrinkled photograph. The three of us.
Taken weeks before she left. I never stopped looking, he whispered. Tears rolled down her face. She took the photo,
Kissed his forehead,
and said, "You found me. But more than that, you found you."
The room fell quiet.
Sunlight poured in through the windows.
And for a moment,
everything felt like home again. But just as I reached for her hand, a tall man entered the room, smiling, carrying flowers. He walked over to Amara, kissed her gently on the cheek, and said, "Ready, love."
My heart stopped.
Jeremiah looked up at me,
confused, silent. Amara stepped back.
Her eyes filled with something heavy.
She glanced between us, and then
she said something I never expected. Amara looked at the man beside her,
then at me, then at Jeremiah,
and back to the man again. For a moment, the air held its breath. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for mine, but she did not hold it. She only touched it gently, then let go. "I was going to tell you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "but I did not know how." Jeremiah clutched my arm, his eyes wide, searching her face for answers. "Is he your husband?" I asked. The words felt like gravel in my throat.
Amara looked down, then up again.
"No, not yet."
The man stepped forward,
extended his hand politely.
"Micah," he said,
"I run this place with her. We started it together." I stared at him.
He had kind eyes, calm, but protective.
The kind of man I used to be, before I lost myself in steel towers and silent boardrooms.
Amara stepped in.
"I did not leave you because I stopped caring," she said. "I left because I started caring too much.
And I was afraid."
I shook my head, not in anger,
but in pain.
"All this time," I said slowly, "all these years, I thought you ran from me." Her eyes welled up again. "I ran from the part of you that was not ready. But I never ran from the boy."
Or the bond.
Jeremiah walked toward her,
looked up at Micah, then at her.
"Do you love him like you loved me?" he asked, innocent and raw.
Amara knelt, held his little hand.
"My love for you is forever," she said. "It is not shared. It is multiplied." Then she looked at me. "But some love is meant to build, and some love is meant to guide." I did not know what to say, because the truth was, I had not just come here to find her. I came hoping to fix something I never finished building.
I turned to leave.
But Jeremiah did not move. He looked at her again and said, "Will you come visit us sometimes? Even if you stay here?"
Amara stood. "I will.
If your father allows it." I met her eyes, and for the first time in my life, I chose to do something not for control,
but for love. I nodded.
"Yes. Come whenever you want. You are family." Micah smiled, and to my surprise,
so did Amara. She stepped forward, touched my son's cheek,
then whispered something to him only he could hear.
He nodded, then hugged her again.
As we walked out of the foundation,
hand in hand,
Jeremiah said something that stopped me cold.
"Dad," he whispered,
"she said you are not done yet. She said your story is just beginning."
And I knew he was right, because sometimes
the most powerful stories are not the ones we finish. They are the ones we have the courage
to rewrite.
And I was ready to begin again. I carried those words with me, like a quiet ember in my chest. You are not done yet. For weeks after, they echoed in my every step. Every boardroom I re-entered. Every deal I now rejected. Every late-night moment when silence wrapped around me and asked who I had become. I no longer saw myself as a billionaire. I saw myself as a father. As a man who had almost missed the point of living, but was given a second chance. Not just by fate, but by a woman who walked away when it would have been easier to stay. Jeremiah changed too. He started drawing again.
Bright colors. Sunrises.
A woman with curly hair and a boy who stood tall beside her. He hung one on the fridge and wrote beneath it in crooked, careful letters, "My heart teacher." I asked him what it meant. He said, "She taught me how to feel my legs, but also how to feel my heart." I turned away so he would not see the tears rising. One night, I received an envelope.
No return address.
Inside was a newspaper clipping. Amara Foundation expands to third state, bringing healing through love and music.
A photo sat beneath the headline.
Amara, standing beside Micah, surrounded by children.
She looked full, alive.
Exactly as she deserved. I stared at the image.
A part of me ached,
but another part smiled. Because sometimes, love does not end in marriage. It ends in meaning. But the story was not over.
Not for me. Not for Jeremiah. 3 months later,
I stood on a stage.
Not for a tech summit.
Not to announce a merger, but to open something new. The Jeremiah Center for Children's Strength. A place where therapy was music. Where stories replaced diagnoses. Where kids were not cases. They were warriors. And in the front row
sat Amara,
wearing white,
silent,
smiling. Jeremiah ran to her during my speech, sat on her lap,
held her hand.
The cameras flashed, but I only saw them. After the ceremony,
she approached me.
"You found your fire," she said.
I nodded. "You lit it." She looked down, then back up.
"I never stopped caring," she said. "I just wanted you to learn how to carry your own flame." I did not answer, just stepped aside, gestured toward the new building. "It is yours too," I said. "Your name is on the cornerstone,
in gold." She blinked, surprised.
"But why?"
I looked her in the eyes.
"Because you are the reason it stands.
And because someday,
Jeremiah will ask what love really looks like.
And I will show him your name, carved in stone."
She said nothing, only pressed her hand against the plaque, then turned and walked toward the children. As I watched her laugh,
hold tiny hands,
sing softly beneath the shade of the courtyard tree, I realized something profound.
Some people come into your life to break you open,
so you can finally begin to build.
And some stories,
the ones that twist, that bruise, that wake you up at midnight, they are the ones that heal. But just as I turned to leave, I saw Micah walking toward her, carrying a small box, wrapped in velvet. He kneeled beside her,
opened it,
and Jeremiah gasped. I stopped walking.
Time slowed.
Because I suddenly knew this was not just the end of a chapter. It might be the start of something I was not ready for. I stood there, frozen, a man with empires behind him, but powerless in this one moment. The velvet box lay open in Micah's hand. Inside, a simple gold ring,
elegant, honest,
nothing extravagant, everything true. Jeremiah looked at me, his mouth parted slightly.
Then he turned to her,
whispered, "Are you going to be his mommy now?" The world went silent. Amara did not answer right away. Her fingers trembled as she touched the edge of the box.
Then she looked at Micah, not with shock, not with fear,
but with a quiet question that only two people who had walked through fire could understand. Micah said nothing.
He waited. Amara turned to Jeremiah,
brushed his hair back with the gentleness of a mother,
kissed his forehead. Then she looked at me.
I never thought I would be in this place, she said. A place where two different kinds of love could live in one heart.
She stood, took a slow breath,
and said to Jeremiah, love does not mean replacing someone. It means expanding.
She looked at Micah,
then back at me, her eyes deep with honesty. No matter what I say next, she said softly, I want you to know. You will always be part of my story. You and your son changed me forever. My heart felt like it was being held in her hands again.
But this time,
she was not trying to keep it. She was setting it down gently, where it belonged.
I nodded.
Because I finally understood.
Some people come to stay.
Others come to awaken you.
And some do both.
Then walk a path you help them find.
Amara looked down at Micah, smiled, took his hand.
But she did not take the ring.
Not yet.
Instead, she whispered, I need one more day. There is something I must do first. Micah nodded without question, as if he already knew.
She turned to me again, eyes steady, voice full.
I want to walk with you. One last time. Just us and Jeremiah.
Through the home we left broken.
Through the memories we left buried.
My breath caught.
I do not want you to carry ghosts, she said. I want you to release them. I could barely speak, but I found my voice.
When?
Her answer was simple. Tomorrow. And just like that, she walked back into the courtyard,
took Jeremiah's hand,
and began helping a girl tie her shoelaces, as if nothing had just happened.
But something had. Something deep. Something final. And yet unfinished. That night,
I stood by Jeremiah's bed,
watched him sleep,
his hand still clutching the tiny photo Amara once gave him. I sat beside him, stared at the ceiling, and whispered to the dark, Amara, whatever tomorrow brings, I will be ready. Because healing is not a moment.
It is a choice, a journey, and sometimes a goodbye, or maybe a beginning.
The next morning arrived quietly.
No thunder, no dramatic sunrise.
Just soft light slipping through the curtains, like grace waiting at the door. I stood in front of the mirror, tying the same navy blue tie I had worn the day Amara left us. Funny how fabric remembers things the heart forgets. Jeremiah rushed in behind me, wearing his little black jacket, hair still messy from sleep. You ready, Dad? His voice, no longer timid, carried a certainty I envied.
I nodded, but inside,
I was not ready at all. We pulled up to the old house just after 9. It looked smaller now, not physically, but in weight. The garden was overgrown.
The porch still creaked.
The wind whistled through the same broken shutter.
And yet,
it no longer felt like a place of grief. It felt like a page that had been waiting for its final words. Amara arrived minutes later, wearing a cream-colored coat.
No makeup,
hair wrapped in a soft scarf. She smiled when she saw us.
Not wide, not forced, just real.
We stepped into the house together. She paused at the doorway, then reached for Jeremiah's hand. As we walked through the rooms, memories rose like dust in sunlight. There was the corner where Jeremiah had taken his first real step. The kitchen where Amara used to hum old gospel songs. The hallway I used to walk in silence. Afraid of the pain I refused to face. Amara stopped in front of the piano. The one that had been silent since my wife passed. She lifted the cover. Pressed a single key. A soft, aching note filled the space. Then she sat down and began to play. A lullaby. Slow. Familiar. Jeremiah leaned against her shoulder, eyes closing, as if the music healed something even sleep could not touch. I sat on the floor across from them, back against the wall. Tears welled in my eyes, not from sadness, but from the weight of everything unspoken finally being heard. When the song ended, Amara turned to me. "I am not here to rewrite the past," she said. "I am here to honor it, and to let it rest." I nodded. My voice cracked. "I never told you. I loved you." She smiled softly. "I know. I felt it. Even in your silence." She stood, walked to the living room, where a small, worn photo album waited on the shelf. She opened it, and there, between pages of birthdays and blurry holidays, was a photo I had never seen. Amara, holding Jeremiah, laughing, in the backyard. I must have taken it. I could not remember when, but looking at it now, it felt like a memory being returned to me, one I had buried beneath the rubble of grief. She closed the album, placed it in my hands. "This is yours," she said, "but the boy in your arms, he is ours." Jeremiah looked up at me, then at her, then whispered, "Can we come here every year? To remember and to thank?" Amara smiled. "Yes, baby, every year." We stood in that quiet room, surrounded by ghosts that no longer scared us, only guided us. And then, her phone buzzed. She read the message, paused, and looked at me. "It is time," she said softly. I knew what she meant. The ring, the choice, the next chapter. But before she walked away, she turned back, eyes glassy, heart wide open, and said something I will never forget. She looked at me, standing by the doorway of the home we once shared in silence, now filled with peace, music, and memory. Her voice trembled only slightly, as she spoke the words that gently closed the final chapter of our past. Healing is not about going back. It is about going forward, with softer eyes, and a stronger heart. I stood there, holding the photo album, the weight of years resting against my chest. But for the first time, it did not feel heavy. It felt sacred, like a story finally told in full. Jeremiah reached up, wrapped one hand around mine, and one around hers. In that moment, we were not broken people with separate wounds. We were a family, rebuilt not through blood, but through choice, through grace, through the kind of love that survives disappointment and turns pain into purpose. Amara looked at Micah, waiting by the car. She smiled, then turned back to me one last time. "Thank you," she said, "for becoming the man your son believed you could be, and for letting me be part of that journey." I nodded, not as a billionaire, not as a man used to power, but as someone who had learned to kneel before truth. I watched as she walked away, hand in hand with Micah, toward a life she had earned, not escaped into, and I stayed behind, with Jeremiah, with memories, with meaning. We sat on the old porch steps, watched the wind move through the garden, where nothing had bloomed for years.
Until now, a small purple flower
pushed through the cracks in the stone. Jeremiah pointed at it. Look, Dad. It is growing, even in the hard place.
I smiled, because that was it.
That was the lesson.
We all break. We all fall.
We all carry regrets. But healing is not a perfect process. It is messy,
uneven, and holy.
And if we are lucky, we meet someone along the way who teaches us that being seen is the beginning of being saved. So here is what I know now. After the wealth, after the sorrow, after the forgiveness, true strength is not in holding it all together. It is in letting go of what never served your soul. It is in choosing love, over and over, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because in the end, it was not business that made me rich. It was a child's first steps, and a maid who became a miracle. Headphone, thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it touched you, share it, comment below, and remind someone. Growth begins where comfort ends. Bell, subscribe to Twisting Tales for more true-to-heart stories with a powerful message. Let us build a world where kindness, healing, and love always win. Yellow heart, because sometimes the stories we live are the ones that change others forever. Moral of the story: no matter how far you fall, no matter how much you lose, there is always a way back. If you are willing to feel, to forgive, and to rise again, not richer in wealth, but in wisdom, your pain can become your power. Your scars can become someone else's shelter. Thank you for being part of this heartfelt journey. If this story touched your soul, please share it, leave a comment below, and remind someone today. You are never alone.